Good morning. So, we build traditions around the events that we want to honor and remember, and usually these traditions are centered around a meal. We have turkey at Thanksgiving lunch, we have ham at Christmas dinner, and we have cake for birthday parties. My wife, Laura, as a kid, she always asked to have meatloaf for her birthday meal. Now, you might think she's a big fan of meatloaf, but she actually hated meatloaf at the time. She only requested it because she knew how much her sister Anna despised it. But we did have meatloaf last night for supper, so we like it now. So God wanted the Israelites to remember and honor their deliverance from slavery in Egypt by giving them the Passover meal. Now, this wasn't an American tradition with pumpkin or apple pie. They were to eat unleavened bread, roasted lamb, and bitter herbs. I think I would have at least asked for some dipping sauce. Fast forward 1,600 years after this event, and the Israelites are still celebrating the Passover meal. And this is where we find Jesus and the disciples at the Last Supper. Now, as I'm sure some of your traditions have evolved over the years, so did the Passover meal. So notice in the Gospels, a lot of focus is put on a cup. But focus on a cup isn't found in any of the Old Testament passages about the Passover meal. So, where did this focus on the cup come from? Scholars aren't sure, but a tradition developed where Israelites started observing 4 cups of wine during the Passover meal based on the 4 promises God gave Israel in Exodus 6:6-7. The first cup stood for the promise of, I will bring you out from under the Egyptians. The second cup stood for, I will deliver you from being slaves. The third cup wasn't observed until after the meal had been finished, which brings us to an interesting verse in Luke 22:20, where it says, after the supper, Jesus took the cup, saying, this cup is the new covenant in my blood, which is poured out for you. So which cup does Jesus say is the cup of his blood in the new covenant? The third cup. And what promise from Exodus does the third cup represent? I will redeem you. Jesus is saying that it is his blood, his life, that will be offered to redeem us. So just as the Israelites were redeemed from slavery to Pharaoh, so Jesus has made a way for us to be redeemed from Satan's sin and death. Now, interesting enough, nowhere in the Gospels does it say that the 4th cup of wine was observed that night. Do you know what this means? I think it means that the Last Supper has not ended. The 3rd cup is still being offered. All are invited to come to Jesus' table to drink and eat and be redeemed. And in Mark 14, after Jesus offers the 3rd cup, he says, I will not drink again from this fruit of the vine from now on until that day when I drink it new with you in my Father's kingdom. So when does the Father's kingdom come about? Well, I think Paul gives us the answer in 1 Corinthians 15. He tells us that Christ must reign until he has conquered all his enemies, and then he will return in the resurrection and hand over his kingdom to God the Father. So it is then that the 4th cup will be observed, when all of creation has been redeemed and heaven and earth have been reconciled. The Bible refers to this event as the wedding supper of the Lamb, and it gives us the imagery of Jesus' complete consummation with us, his bride, the church. Which is why the 4th cup stands for the promise of, I will take you as my people. So when we take communion together today, I want you to picture Jesus inviting you to the same meal that happened 2,000 years ago. Remember all the imagery that the meal represents and how important it was. And picture Jesus offering you the 3rd cup, not only as an opportunity, but as a promise to redeem you from sin and death. And notice that there are empty seats next to you, that Jesus wants you to go and invite others to come and fill. And finally, look ahead with joy when we will drink the fourth cup together with Jesus as we sing his praise in our Father's kingdom as one of his redeemed.